The other day I found this funny meme, and it was a picture of an inspirational Bible calendar. So it was a calendar, one of those daily calendars, and they had these inspirational quotes that were a part of this calendar. And this one, I know you're not going to be able to read this, but I'll read it to you. This one said, on the top of this, it says inspirational Bible quote. And then the Bible quote that was on the calendar said this, if you then will worship me, all of this will be yours. And then underneath it, it says, less inspirational if you know who said it. Now, let me explain the context of what this is all about, because this is a great quote. It sounds like a wonderful quote. If you then will worship me, all of this will be yours. That sounds wonderful, doesn't it? But here's the problem. That verse comes from Luke chapter 4. And it comes in the moment where Jesus is in the wilderness and he's being tempted by the devil. And the devil says to him, if you then worship me, all of this will be yours. You see, the context changes the meaning of that just a little bit. Not quite as inspirational if you recognize that the one who is asking to be worshiped is the devil. And Jesus is wise enough to say, nope, not going to do that. That's the way some of these things are sometimes. I mean, a lot of times, even with Bible verses, we have a wonderful way of taking a verse that sounds really good completely out of context. We rip it out of context, and then it comes to mean something absolutely very different from what we've ever imagined it really is all about. And so, as I was thinking about this, I was thinking about how easy it is for us, I think at times, to be very misdirected, very misinformed about certain things. And I thought about the fact that for Jesus' disciples, they would have grown up being educated the best they could be by the rabbis within the community, because that's often how education would go during that time. And they taught them all kinds of wonderful things. But in the midst of teaching that, sometimes we begin to build an understanding of what life and what faith is all about and what we are supposed to be doing is all about. And sometimes when we begin to build that, we build it on really a false foundation. I mean, even if our teachers are good, sometimes we can misunderstand what the quote is all about. We can misunderstand what the meaning is all about, and we begin to build our faith on something that's really not what God intended. And so I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about those disciples, and I was thinking about this one time in the scripture. It's in Matthew chapter 18, where the disciples are trying to figure out what greatness is all about. Now, see, they've been following Jesus. They know Jesus is pretty great. They are beginning to think at this point that maybe he is the promised one of God, maybe he is the Messiah. And so they begin to elevate Jesus, and because they are followers of him, and Jesus has actually invited them to follow him, they begin to elevate themselves. But now they question Jesus about greatness. And they say to him, it says in Matthew chapter 18, verse 1, at this time the disciples came to Jesus and asked, who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? Now, all kinds of things are going around in their mind. Who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? The one who sits on the throne of David. Who is the greatest in the king of heaven? The one who is as wise as Solomon. Who is the greatest in the king of heaven? Someone who has the faith and the leadership of Moses. Who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? You see, they begin to think about all those things. They've read about all these great people in the kingdom of heaven, and so they put it to Jesus because they too are wondering, can we be as great as all these other great superstars of our faith? So they asked Jesus, who is greatest in the kingdom of heaven? And here's what Jesus does. He calls a child whom he put among them and said, truly I tell you, unless you change and become like a child, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Whoever becomes humble like this child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. Boy, Jesus just flips it all upside down, doesn't he? I mean, these men who are following Jesus, and probably even some of the women who have been following Jesus, are trying the best they can to be more faithful, to be more strong, to be more able in all of their leadership. And there's nothing wrong with that. But ultimately, what Jesus said is the mark of greatness is being able to recognize your limitations, being able to recognize your dependence on your God in heaven, being able to recognize that there is a need for the community that will help build you up and move you through life. And you know what? That's exactly what those children were. That was the symbol of what that child was, somebody who is dependent on the kingdom around them, someone who recognizes, I don't know everything, someone who is able to lean, even in their weaknesses, on the God that has created all things. You see, it's easy for us to get misdirected. And in reality, what Jesus does for these disciples is he tries to teach them the importance of humility, the importance of being open to the teachings that God has given them, to be willing to say, I can't do it all on my own, God. That, for Jesus, is the beginnings of the mark of greatness. To be able to say, I'm not as great as maybe I think I am. I need the presence of God in my life.